Try answering. Okay. Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talk at 8. My name is Alton. I am your host. And as we do every Wednesday night, or most Wednesdays, load shedding and everything else permitting in South Africa, we have a conversation about sport. We talk about how sport has changed people's lives and the impact that it has on people. Tonight, we're joined by Etienne, George, Anzel, and hopefully Coach Ashraf will join us. He's battling to connect, but also Ton with another interview. So, as you know, we talk about what people do, how they do it, when they do it, and how sport has changed their lives. So let's jump straight into it. Anzal, good evening. As the young lady Anzal on the panel, tell us a little bit about you.
Good evening, listeners, and thanks, Alton, for the invitation. Yeah, you say the sweetest things, the young lady. I think you should keep on talking.
No,
Yes,
no, 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 no.
I'm Anzel Laubscher, and I'm a chess player and a chess coach. Yeah.
How did you get involved in chess? Tell us that story.
Oh dear. That was purely by accident because I did not want to do what George coaches.
Yeah.
I did not want to run. So if you ever see me run, you have to chase the person or shoot the person chasing me. So I wanted to skip a netball practice where we had to do fitness with the cross country teacher. And I
Hmm.
ended up running into a classroom because I saw there's something happening there. And it was the big kids. And I was grade 3, what is that? Standard 1 back then.
Then it won, yeah.
So I ran in with the big kids and I pretended that I could play chess just to get out of running for an hour. And yeah, I really faked it and I made it,
So, so,
literally.
so, yeah, so what is the definition of making it? What happened?
Well,
Tell us,
you know,
tell us, tell us your journey in short.
it's actually my dad, my amazing parents that were very, very good at parenting, because I then pretended now to play chess for the day. And then when I
Yeah.
got to the front gate, my dad was waiting for me, and I knew now I'm in trouble because the entire netball team's parents were searching for me. Okay, because this child is lost now. So I then my dad kept on. I said to my dad, no, I want to play chess now. I was
Yeah.
pretending. And he said to me, okay, no, keep on playing then. And the next week I
Mm.
had to go back just to keep up this pretense. And
Yes.
then 2 weeks later, the coach said to me, but she wants to speak to my dad because there's a tournament and she wants me to play. So I played my first tournament. I won 1 game out of 7. Alton, one
Sure.
game. And that was because my
Sure.
opponent didn't show up. I was I was crying all the way home. I said to my dad, they should ban this game. It is evil. It is destroying people's lives. So my dad said, if I can win 2 games in a tournament, I can quit chess.
Sure.
So I started training to quit. Now, at 9 years old, that was a very logical
Yes.
thinking space. So I trained to quit, and 2 weeks later, I played another tournament, and I won 4 games out of 7
Sure.
against 13-year-old boys, I must say. So, and the rest is history. Yes. Then later on, I got selected for the national team and represent South Africa on national level since '98. Yeah.
But what you failed to tell us is that you were one of the first women to be ranked internationally. Why are you not telling us
Yes.
that, Ansel?
Ah, yeah, well, I was in the first ever Olympia team that South Africa selected in '98. Due to sanctions, we weren't allowed to play at the international stage for a long time.
Yeah.
So in '98, South Africa selected the first ever Olympia team, and I was in that first team, and I'm the only one from the original team still playing.
Well, what was it like going over as the first team?
Well, the men went before, but not the women. But us as women, it was absolutely amazing. Alton, we were 20 years old to start with, all of
Yeah.
us. So that's enough said, right? So we were all the same age. We had an absolute ball. It was such a nice team spirit, and we learned so much because we then, for the first time in my life, I got coaching. I never had a coach because I wanted to play netball. I was a netball player.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get off the court to train chess. I wanted to play netball.
Definitely.
So it wasn't, yeah.
Anzel, I got a message from someone who said you must tell us the story about an 8-year-old beating a grandmaster in chess.
Oh, that happened. That news broke yesterday or today. Alton, but the worst part is I know the grandmaster. I know Jacek. Jacek and I traveled, we spent a month together in India in 2017, January. We were a bunch of players that played 3 tournaments in India, and we played together. And he's such a nice guy, but he's really, really strong, eh? He is... And for an 8-year-old to beat him, that's a decent win. That's a decent win.
A decent win. That's almost like a world record in chess.
Yeah.
Anzel, let's just park here for a minute because I want you, and I'll get to the gents in a minute. Just explain to us the different levels. So how do you become a grandmaster? Just take us through the different categories. So you have your normal player, a school player, then you become Western Province, then you become Western Cape, then you become SA player, and then from there, how does the master series work? Because people don't understand the grandmaster title. How do I get the grandmaster title?
Okay, so grandmaster title or titles are not necessarily linked to your provincial or national or international status, because 100%. I mean, in South Africa, we are not one of the top chess countries in the world, and for us to have certain titles is probably like 14-year-olds in other countries, Yeah. so it depends, but there are different titles. So the highest title, or the first title that you can start with, the master's title, is a candidate master.
Yeah.
And then a FIDE master. FIDE is our international federation, like FIFA, Yeah. So that's so FIDE master, and then international master, and then grandmaster. So international master is just below grandmaster. Yes. So that's the highest level of title that you can get.
And an 8-year-old whipped him. But we won't go into that. Let's just stop that right there.
Yeah, but Alton now, so he beat the GM, the grandmaster, that round. But the next round, he lost against an international master again. You see, so, yeah,
look,
it depends.
What people don't understand, that like with every other coder sport, you need to practice chess. And there's many ways, and we'll get to the principles of that in a couple of minutes. So let's park there. Etienne, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll come to Grandmaster George.
Hi, good evening, Alton, Anzel, George. Hello. So I'm speaking to George from George. So that's where I'm situated. Alton, I've also had I should add, Anzel is not an overachiever at all. Yeah. And she's also very modest in not saying that she was chosen for the AFCON team competing in Ghana. Well done, Anzel. All the best. Hopefully we'll sort your nutrition and your physiology activities out to be busy working on that. And Alton, that's, if you can just maybe make a note of that we touch on that point later on in the chat. So yeah, my background is more in terms of the endurance adventure sports. So why sports? I was too lazy to study at school, so sport was just easier to go to, and fortunately in a school that I've been at high school, it was easier to go and prepare on a Friday afternoon to convince the accounting teacher for me to go and prepare the rugby balls than sitting in an accountancy lecture. Yeah. Needless to say, starting my own business now, I wish I did attend the accountancy classes because it would have helped me now. But anyway, I'll say it was just more of a lifestyle for me. Adventure sports, like I said, played a big role because it basically merged for me 3 worlds of the sport love for nature, but also allowing me to be competitive. I'm of nature as a sports person. I think we're all competitive, but it provided me in that environmental space to live those three passions. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have competed also internationally, not at the Olympics, because I think adventure sports is only recently I would say the last generation, maybe 8 to 10 years, starting to become a sport, people with adventure sports becoming with a mindset with the likes of the Cape Epic and the Mats. It's a 160-kilometer trail run that we're hosting here in George, or it's being hosted in George now. So that environmental space has also developed over the last couple of years. I said to somebody this morning, if you look at the Olympic Games and the cohort of sports, actually a lot of the new world of sports is traditionally old recreational stuff, recreational activities. So to give you a simple example, we all know about mountain biking and how it developed over the last generation, but it used to be a more recreational off-season activity for the cycling athletes, and the same for athletics. That's where trail running, etc., etc. So we find ourselves in a very interesting commercial space where those kind of sports has become more professional. I think the research academically is also moving towards understanding the adventure sports as like I said, a profession, but more scientific. So it's an interesting space, and it's always been a part of my. Anzel and myself spoke about the concept of sports DNA. Anzel, we had this chat the other night, and maybe that's a point that we can elaborate on. And I think that's what brings George and Anzel and yourself and Ashraf to this platform. We cannot actually, I can't see my life without sport in whichever way. So it's very fortunate to be able and allowed in a context, economical context, where we are to make a life from it, living from it.
Etienne, tell us about the center that you started in George. What have you got there? What's in that center? Because that's the pinnacle of where you're at right now.
Yes, yeah, so I've been fortunate enough for like the last couple of years to be in academia from a sports, exercise, science perspective. And so I started, if you see in a logo at the back, it's the Garden Route Injury Treatment Center. Basically, it's a hyperbaric oxygen center chamber to assist people with injuries in healing. But I think, so it's a very easy, this is a long scientific discussion. Maybe we need, like Mr. Bam, in the last 4 weeks. Give me four weeks and I can maybe touch on the potential of this form of therapy. But with that also being said, we shouldn't see what I'm doing here in George. It's the first of its kind in the Garden Route. So how can we use things like this, new methods of coaching, new treatment modalities like I've got here in preparation. Yeah. So how do we prepare the athlete? We all know about coaching, but how can we physically prepare an athlete? For Anzel, for instance, if she was in the hyperbaric chamber here, how can we prepare her for the African Games? Or so I think it's just another angle of coaching component. So I'm basically merging a couple of worlds together here: the sports coaching, the preparation, the therapy, so I deal with injuries on a wide spectrum. Cancer, MS. I've got an MS patient that's showing amazing results. So I'm going to stop there, Alton. Otherwise, I'm going to hijack George's time. Love to hear his story as well.
100%. And it's an interesting center. And we'll get a bit more detail about it as we go along. Uncle George, sure. Now that you've moved to Cape Town, how are you?
I'm exceptionally well, thank you. I was rather interested in Etienne's story about school, because like him at school, in standard 4, what is that, grade 6 or something these days,
Yeah.
I found that there were little girls who went to Weinberg School. And what was more important than sport was seeing the girls from Weinberg School in those days. So I did not become involved in sport at school, other than, I guess you could call it rugby, couch rugby. But then I became a workaholic. And unfortunately, when I was just under 60, I picked up a heart problem. And the specialist told me I had to start exercising. And what I had was, I don't know if I know the name correctly, Etienne might know it. I think they called it a left bundle branch block or something like that, where the nerves to one side of the heart, shall we just say, pack up. And I was told that I had to do certain exercise, and I was walking, and I hated it. And 6 months later, I was told I'm not improving, and I still hated the walking. And I said to the guy, please, can't I run? And this heart specialist finally said to me, then run, damn it. So I joined a club in Bedford View, and I decided, I met the chairman at the time, and I went to my first ever session. And these girls ran out of the Virgin Active in Bedford View, and George runs behind them. I couldn't even make the stop street. I was dead. So I was exceptionally unfit. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I so enjoyed running that I decided I wanted to run better. And how do I do that? I picked up books on coaching. And the first book I picked up was, I think it said 4 months to a 4-hour marathon. And that is when I found out coaching books are sometimes misleading, because at the end of it, it said, we assume that you've run for at least 2 years before that you read this book. So that was what I learned afterwards. But I really, really, really enjoyed running tremendously, and that is why I started to study more and more about coaching. And I was fortunate enough, I met a lot of athletes, and I was introduced by Hendrik Romala, or through Hendrik Romala, to a guy who became my mentor. And this chappie was fantastic. So yes, but for him, I wouldn't have studied as far as I did study. And that's Owen van Niekerk, the late Owen van Niekerk. He passed away last year, unfortunately. Absolutely great person to teach you. And Etienne, my problem was that at the time that I started studying, ASA was in a state of disrepair and didn't even have sessions to elect or to let people pass level 1 or level 2 or level 3 in coaching. So I had to do it with Owen, who qualified me on some British standard. So that was my background to coaching.
Guys,
but I did enjoy couch rugby when I was young.
What George fails to tell you, as you know, as you can see, I know a bit about all these guests. What George fails to tell you is you open his garage, Anzel. It's like a library. The entire garage, right around, front, back sides. His wife battles to get into the car because there's so many books on sport. On the one side is sports, one little side is for his wife, and the other side is coaching.
No, wrong. One little side is for me. The big side is for her.
Oh yes, I got. But that's the nature of the relationship. They ravish readers. Over and above
Often is the wife perhaps from Weinberg High?
Sorry?
Is George's wife perhaps from Weinberg? Was she one of the ladies
Margaret,
that you know
Margaret,
Where did you
no,
play? Was
Margaret
Margaret
doesn't
at
do
Weinberg High?
anything in athletics.
No, was
Okay.
Margaret at
I didn't
Weinberg
hear.
High? Was Margaret at Weinberg High, George?
What is she doing, you say?
No, was Margaret at Weinberg High? It's Etienne's question.
No. She was at Rustenburg. I
Oh.
met her the first time when I was in Standard 6. I met her, but I was going out with friends of hers. And then when she was 21 and I was 22, we met up again. And the same night we met up, we agreed to get married, believe it or not.
And that's 50 years later. Just so by the way. George,
Well done.
58 years.
58, yeah.
Sure. Well done.
A young man called Nadir Akhedin, who was the chairman of Western Province Golf and president of SA Golf. I'm sure you remember this young man. Says George is a legend. I was extremely upset when he was charged to use the stadium for his training that he does for free. That was nearly 10 years ago, and he still remembers it, George.
Well, unfortunately, that was a thing called Central Gauteng Athletics at that point. And Germiston's stadium, which was Ekurhuleni. And believe it or not, when I wanted to coach kids who I was coaching for nothing at night, they wouldn't turn on the lights unless I paid for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was... I did this for a while, and then a very, very nice guy at Ekurhuleni picked us up. Unfortunately, he's also passed away. His name was Boise. And Boise and Patricia, between them, organized that we got running lights for the evenings. But that took about 2-3 years to get that. So it was lovely people, though.
Yeah. What George also forgets to tell you is that he's coaching some of the top Western Province road running guys who literally win between his group every weekend. They win an event between the bunch of runners that he coaches. And George has got a very different way of coaching. He uses mathematics. And we won't reveal all your secrets, George, but you and I have debated this. Look at Anzel's face. Yes, Anzel, he uses mathematics to coach athletics. Let's just park it there.
Well, I should
Shawnee,
let me I'll give you a quick background on it. When I was reading one of my coaching books, it was called Running 101 by a chap called Joe Henderson. And the first time I read it, it was just reading. The second time I studied it, and I found that he mentioned a mathematical formula. So not to be daunted, I picked up the internet and I found Joe and I wrote to him and I said to him, "Where do you get this?" He said, "Well, I kept these records from the time I was at school. And this is what I found out mathematically what happens in a person's body." So I applied it on a spreadsheet and I took about 100 top athletes in the world and tried the formula, and it was spot on. Hendrik Romala was one of them. It was absolutely brilliant. So I thought, well, if you know what speed he's got to run 10K at to do that 206 marathon, then if you can coach other people to run the same speed, they must be close. And one of the athletes that I did that with was a chap called Namakwa Nkazi from Lesotho, and he went to Olympics in 2016. Still like a child to me. We've been together since 2014.
Interesting. We'll park it there. Shawnee and many others can jump on whether it's on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Give us your comments. Shawnee says, George, you should start your own sports library. I've got Shawnee at one point. At one point, George had a few copies of the same book, and I was lucky to get a copy, the spare copy, the additional copy. So, George, I still have your books here in my library. And Anzel,
okay, that's good.
Let's talk a little bit about coaching, because we're all coaches on this space. So, I mean, you in many different ways coach. So you coach chess in the pure sense of the coach, one-on-one athlete. You coach coaches as a master coach in chess, but you've also served on the SASCOC panel of coaching development. How has that changed you, and what are some of the principles you've learned out of all of those different spaces that we as coaches need to learn? What are some of the general things? And the same question
All
goes to
right.
each of you.
Yeah. Alton, first of all, yeah, the SASCA. Did you say SASCA, right?
No, remember you and I served on the SESCOC Coaches Commission.
Yes, yes. But you know, there's a professional body now,
Yeah,
SASCA,
yeah,
SASCA. So I'm a board member for the on that board as well, where coaches can register as a coach, you know, with them, and then
yeah.
also attend certain training courses, and we have really nice things that they get for free, where something like how to deal with burnout for athletes, or
Yeah.
you know, we have guest speakers, there's safeguarding, there's anti-doping, there's so many
Yeah.
different things that you get as a member, but also you can get a coaching designation. So many of us have been coached for many years in whatever
Yeah.
sport or whatever code, but you have no papers. You know, like in Afrikaans we say, "Ek soek die
Yeah.
papiere, waar's jou papiere?" You know,
Yeah.
and we don't have any proof. So they do an RPL, recognition of prior learning. They look at what you have done all these years and they give you a coaching designation. So you become a master coach or a coach assistant or a senior coach or whatever. And well, I didn't know that we're going to speak about that as well, but that is
No,
definitely one
no.
thing I would,
Yeah.
yeah. Because what is very
Yeah.
important there
Yeah.
is the police clearance or criminal clearance certificates and those kind of things, especially when you work with children. So eventually
100%.
we want to move towards that, to say, look, if you want to work with children, at least you need to get all these clearances. But on that note, just to give you some peace of mind as well on this, is now going to the All African Games with Team South Africa. So we are 18 different codes, over 300 athletes going. So I'm the captain for the chess team, and Alton, you will not believe the list of things we need to do. So we all have to do we have to submit anti-doping certificates, the safeguarding certificate, criminal clearance, all of us, the
Yeah.
players also. You know, so I am ecstatic about that. You know, with my legal background,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Yes, definitely. But
So,
then the other thing that, yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
Go.
But the other thing that got me really excited now is when George mentioned that they use mathematics with the sport. You know, now that's my main passion. George, you will go bananas if you see what we do with chess. So I believe that that any sport develops certain skills in the individual, in a human being. There's a reason why people need to learn how to kick a ball or how to run or how to, you know, there are certain things that it develops certain skills. And it's not only about physical skills. There are certain cognitive and 21st century skills that are being developed by participating in sport or learning the skills of the game. And what we underestimate, we only think as sport people, we only think of how can education and academia help the sport. It's the other way around. Because
100%.
if you take, for instance, in chess, if you look at the skills that mathematics develop, 21st century skills that mathematics develop. Now, George, you will know these things. All those skills, exactly that skill set is what chess can also develop. So your learner who is not necessarily mathematical inclined or whatever can now use chess to breach that gap. And also our education system is failing us. I mean, I'll say this to the highest authorities in South Africa. And we can use sport as a tool to gap that, to fix that as an educational tool for skills development. And this is what I do for FIDE, for our international organization. I'm a co-author of the preparation of teachers course that we roll out throughout the world. I work especially in Africa. Last year, or in the last year and a half, I trained almost over 300 schools instructors in Africa. And we're now writing the lecturers course as well, so people can do what I do. So they can go out and train the teachers. Yes. It's
now-
amazing.
I'm over the moon when I hear that.
Yes,
I'm
George, we
over
need
the
to
moon
speak
when I hear you doing that. Because one of the things that I've tried to encourage with all the children that I coached was that they also concentrate on their academics. And out of the people in Germiston that I was coaching, which was brought up just now about the track, there were 3 or 4 guys who were suffering in maths. And a couple of people assisted me, and we paid for them to get extra maths lessons. Well, the one young chappie who was getting like 30% got 90-something% in his matric. And he went on and he qualified in engineering at, I think that it used to be called Wall University of something or other. And he also got over 90 for maths in that. So it pays to do this, really, to help people.
But George, you can do it the other way around. When they do athletics, you can actually, if you know they struggle, or not even if you know they struggle while they're doing athletics, you can give them a little math puzzle to say, look, if you want to run this fast and you want, you can do your own mathematics there because you develop skills. You can develop academic skills as academic skills while they do sport.
100%.
I do that, by the way. When they get their programs, it actually tells them how I arrive at the figures. So
George,
all my athletes know what time they've got to do.
It's interesting. I've seen it. It's next level. Anzel, there's 2 comments and questions on Facebook. One from Llewellyn Lowe says Anzel Laubscher is a legend. And you know who I'm referring to. And the second one is a question from a parent at St. Sips who says,
Yes.
is there any truth to Anzel having coached at St. Cyprian's and taking the team to the International Schools Championships?
Was there, sorry, ask it again.
Is there any truth to you taking the St. Cyprian's team to the International Schools Chess Championships? How did that make you feel as a coach?
2005 Turkey. I just moved to Cape Town and I was appointed as their coach, and I took the team with a primary school from Bloemfontein because that's when I moved from Bloem to Cape Town.
Yep.
So both my teams qualified. The primary school team qualified in the same year and the high school team in Cape Town. So I was just honestly, by God's grace, at the right time in exactly the middle of my transition. And I traveled with the 4 girls from St. Cyprian's and with Elizabeth the Toy. And we took the girls with the President Brandt Primary School, Turkey. Yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
Etienne, from your perspective, how has coaching changed the way you think? I mean, you've got a very much academic background, having lectured in sports science and sport and recreation. How has the principles of coaching over time changed, or has it?
Alton, I think you know me. I'm going to be controversial, and I have to be, because we have to keep on pushing the boundaries. I think we claim that a lot of things have changed over we would like to claim that it has, but I wonder if it has. But let me rather answer your question with how I would like it to be in an ideal world. Bearing in mind that I don't think what I'm going to say now has really been caught on by the powers to be or at be. So as a coach, I think it starts first and foremost for me. It starts with passion, and I see that in George. I see that in Anzel. Anzel and I are in constant communication with each other on various platforms, and I think that is any listener out there tonight will hear that. So take that away from George and Anzel, I don't think they will be good coaches personally. So it starts for passion, and we can see that clearly. And then I think what is a big lack in coaching at the moment in South Africa, and I think worldwide maybe, it's not totally absent, but I think we need to find the ideology behind coaching. and a philosophy. So when I talk to coaches and people in my industry here, that's would be the first question that I would ask anybody that's putting themselves out there as a coach. What is your philosophy? So a philosophy brings back to what I alluded to earlier, is the DNA. That's the essence of why, the what, and how we do. And then the technicality comes, for me, secondary. And then what I also like, what George is also saying, is it's a science. It's physics. The mathematical approach to what we do. We can apply that theory, and I don't think George realizes, maybe he does, being an intelligent and well-read man like he is. What he's explaining to us tonight, that he's got a specific ideology that influences his methods, and methods is then applied and created and achieved on the athletics field. And it makes sense. It's an intelligent approach to what we do, and it's an informed approach to what we do. And for me, those are the first two major things: the ideology, to create that, and we need to install that through all spectrums, through education, and that's the platform. And that's what we're teaching. So again, the technicality of the sport that we do is, if I spend enough time with Anzel as an aerobic athlete, I think I would be able to, with the right mindset, being the ideology and the philosophy, I would be able to become a technical coach. But those are the things that's lacking for me in this industry. And then I think the third thing I want to emphasize, if I may, Alton, is the fact that what we're speaking about here tonight is, yes, we speak about the DNA of sport, it's the DNA of sport in us. And what we're saying is a transfer. It's a transfer of skills, isn't it? What George is doing mathematically, what Anzel is teaching maths on a chessboard, it's a transfer of skills to other areas of our lives. And if we start seeing our athletes as in a dimensional context, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, environmental, then we're starting to approach and encroach on the dimensional, holistic approach. And I think if we as coaches, and this is the last point that I would take now, is if we starting to get that stance, we will realize the power that we have as coaches in terms of shaping lives of young people. And then where does it end? In a country where we've got a lack of employment opportunities, we as coaches are playing a massive role in society in terms of transferring these skills, teaching them the way of thinking, not just running on a track, but it's transferable into other areas of their lives. And where does it start? With all of our passion for sport, and that's what brought us here tonight. And yeah, so I hope it makes sense, Alton. That's partly my view. And then maybe if I can just add on, Alton, last comment on this. The more I think about this, it brings me back to the Canadian. Anzel, you're going to shake or nod in agreement here. If we start coaching with the long-term athlete development mindset, now remember again, ideology, philosophy, technicality of the sport comes later. It's not secondary, it's as important, but we need to understand these processes. And that is what I would like to see in an ideal world in our country. Then imagine where can it take us? Long, healthy. But how much money are we spending on hospitals? If we can start implementing what we're saying here, we will get rid of hospitals. We'll get rid of prisons. The previous chat that we had a while back on your show. What is the answer to the issues and problems in society? Let's do what we do and keep on doing it and doing it better. And yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
Etienne, let me start at the back and say that's the reason why Vitality is so successful and why Discovery is making so much money. Is because they incentivize people to be healthy. The government is working in the opposite direction.
Absolutely, I'm not going to disagree with you.
If you look at the budget speech that is happening right now, you'll find that the budget for sport and recreation is 9th or 10th out of 13 levels in the government. That's the low priority that is given to sport in this country. Problem number one. In terms of the long-term participant development, yes, Anzel and I, we were at, and you were there when we launched it in 2007, I think it was, way back then. It didn't take off because people didn't want to buy into the principle of beginner child at this age, they need to do these kinds of skills. And yes, if we come back to that, we're moving in that direction. But coaches don't buy into that concept. So it's an educational thing. And then thirdly, George and will tell you that, and many of us will know that you can't coach a hungry child. So you need to be able to think in terms of how we grow the athlete in all its facets. George van der Wester and Victor Matfield all were bankrupt in the first year of being professional rugby players because no one gave them the life skills of budgeting. And that's part of as a coach. You're not just there to coach on the field activities. You're meant to coach things that happen off the field. You know, as Brent says, 100% Etienne, a lot of disciplines that make us successful today has come out through our coaches that have instilled to us over many years. Time management, commitment, persistency, consistency. Those are the things that come out through sport that play into our daily life. George, what's your view?
Well, I want to add a little bit to what was said about how to get commitment out of people. I, for quite a long time, was trying to convince ASA, but also through CGA, that they must make, you can say, in my case, the sport of running more accessible to people from the townships. If you look at the teams, the makeup of the teams, they are mainly people from the schools who've got athletics as a subject. So it could be that you get Marefel Yun School or something who find athletes. Yes. But now, if we take the trouble, we collectively, and try and encourage our local athletics, or in the case of chess or whatever, to try and have sessions. Let me use an example. I actually ran such an evening to show CGA, or I ran 2 evenings to show CGA it could happen. The big problem that you've got is people from townships don't have easy access to taxis. So therefore, you've got to give them a stadium like Germiston, which is easily accessible to taxis, and not go and use one in, say, Benoni or whatever the case is. Yeah. And what we did is we ran evenings whereby we gave prizes to all those who won, but also we gave them an incentive that if they ran within a certain time of the South African qualifying standards, they got more. And the lady who actually on the second evening, I think, or the first evening, the lady who's just run overseas in Valencia 2:25, she was one of the winners in one of the evenings that I ran. So it shows it does help these people when they're younger. We need to give an incentive, not just talk about it, but actually physically try and encourage Athletics South Africa or the funding people to start funding, call it track for people that can get this, say, twice a month, so that kids of poor people can go to track. And really, our Boksburg Club put it on for me very, very nicely. And they organized the whole evening, the stadium, the late Piet van der Merwe, he was the MC for the day. It was beautiful. And that is what I would also like to see, encouraging youth throughout the country in all the big centers to start with. Maybe you guys have got ideas how to do it. I'm the old man now.
Look, George, you and I have had this debate. Western Province is ranked 9th out of 13 provinces for track and field currently, which is unheard of currently.
Horrible.
It's horrible. And there are plans afoot from 1 or 2 clubs, as well as Western Province Athletics and but it's a long process because we've lost focus of youth, because from a sporting perspective, all we focus on is where income comes from and how to get medals rather than the big picture. And as a coach, many of us will know that unless you have a mass participation, you're not going to have enough people to have talent ID to go to the next level in the triangle, and from there
That's
to go to elite participation.
that's
And right now we're battling with that mass participation. Not only in athletics, but athletics forms the basis. School athletics forms the basis, to Anzel's point earlier, forms the basis of where hand-eye coordination, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, to be able to come into a chess environment, to be come into an adventure sport environment like Etienne's. And unless we get that right, we're losing athletes and we're creating a world, a mock, where people aren't unsustainable. Anzel, from your perspective, how do we change that narrative, and what are the principles? What are your to Etienne's point earlier? What are some of the principles that you believe and teach as a coach to coaches?
Alton, I want to link on to what, or to elaborate a little bit on what Etienne said earlier. But to get there, I want to take us back to the LTCD or LTPD that you mentioned. LTCD is the long-term coach development plan. Now, when we started this, when we were part of the original project, and when Sascox started this and all that, the main focus was a holistic approach. You develop the player or the athlete. Let's say athlete, because that covers any type of sport or activity. So you develop the athlete, but it's the athlete first, the human being first, and the athlete second. So first you deal that child might not be an athlete for the rest of his or her life, but they will be a human being for the rest of their lives. Okay, so I firmly believe in that. When you develop the athlete, you develop the entire person, from cognitive development, physical development, social development, psychological development, all of that you develop, right? So that's all good and well, but I think we are now at a point where we also need to include holistic responsibility. The athlete holistic responsibility.
100%.
So now we are at the point where us as coaches, we know what and how to teach these athletes, okay, in a holistic approach to develop. It's not just about, yes, we want the medals, obviously, but we do understand that we have to coach the entire body and the surroundings as well. But still, if the athlete, we got to a point now where we are again at a plateau, okay, so this is all good and well, the holistic approach. And the next step, and this is where I also realized this, the more I spoke with Etienne about certain things in this all this development, is that the athlete needs to take responsibility. But how do we give the athlete? You can't give someone responsibility without the knowledge. So my proposal, and I'm making this for the first time tonight, is that let's include the next step from LTCD. It's all good and well. The first step was holistic approach. Let's make the next step holistic educational approach. Because we're turning back to the point now where athletes can make money. They can do it professionally. Okay? And in chess, for instance, we see now that when I went to study, when I left school, I had the opportunity to play abroad and to go to a chess academy abroad. But my dad said, no, you finish your law degree, because that was my generation. I was positively forced or encouraged to finish my qualifications, and then I can do something else, But first, your academic qualification. The times have changed again. If I look at the generation now that are leaving school, and even the just below 30s still, they can, in chess, they can do online streaming and they can make a living from chess now. We couldn't do that in the past. It wasn't a career. It wasn't a career option. But now, if the athlete can understand why they do certain things, that educate both the athlete and the coach, and it will enhance performance.
Anzel, I hear you, Etienne. I'll come to you in a minute. My only concern is, if for argument's sake, chess is one example, because the risk of injury is limited. But you take another coder sport like rugby. If Sia Kolisi didn't recover from his ACL tear, his career would be over other than being an influencer. What does he have to fall back on? If you look at a guy like Dr. Divan Serfontein, the Springbok rugby scrum off, he was a doctor. Many of we need to think in terms of long term. And yes, we can make money as athletes from sport, but when our sporting career is over, you look at baby Jack Majala, we had to raise money to bury a world champion because he didn't have money. So we need to think also. It's a double-edged sword, Etienne.
Alton, I think we need to emphasize potential and economic potential. And I would like Anzel, with your approval, to explain to us what they're doing in chess at the moment with the Battle of Boards competition and theory. And Alton, if I may, I think anybody in South Africa with their 2 cents worth of salt in what they say they do, they need to look at chess. For me, chess and what Anzel, and not because we are friends, they are implementing, my mind, the blueprint of how sport, chess as a sport, but sport in general. Anzel, well done. You guys are putting the platform. For me, you are the blueprint of sports development, education, the way that you do it. Well done for you and your federation internationally, and also the challenges that you guys have gone through as a federation recently to get where you are now. Emphasizing, well done. You are honestly, in my opinion, the blueprint of how it should be done. So quickly, Anzel, explain to the listeners the Battle of Boards competition, and Alton, then let's us see potential here, because it's economical value, but what Anzel and them are doing through this.
Okay, Anzel, take us through it quickly.
Yes, it's actually the battle boards. It's sponsored by Alexander Forbes, but that's not my brainchild. It's just the online event that's between provinces and schools, and so they can literally sit in their classroom or with devices and play against each other in different provinces. But what is really nice about this, what we're trying to establish, is I got a collaboration with Super Sports Schools to commentate for them on these games. So Jessie February and myself, she's also a women's international master. So the two of us, she's my teammate going to all African games too. So the two of us are commentating. She is brilliant in all the tech stuff and all that. I'm that person. I'm not allowed to press any buttons. I can speak and I can comment on the games and stuff, but I'm not allowed to touch the mouse or the buttons. So she does all that. But what we do is we commentate on the games live as they happen, because in chess you can see the games live on the screen, right? But what we try to do is to give it a homey feel, and we will banter with each other. We will make jokes in between. We will tell about our experiences in chess, so someone can actually sit in their lounge on their couch and watch chess. And even if they don't know chess, now suddenly we mention some of the players' names from the school. Then we mention Paul Ruiz, and then it's Tswele Lopele, and we mention the schools, we mention the player's name, and suddenly they hear, oh, the kids are on Super Sports Schools, Then auntie in Australia must now quickly download the app and log in because they're talking about the child, So we're trying to bring it to to everyone, but also that the kids can afterwards look at it and see, oh, they gave commentary on my game, and they gave some examples, and we commentate in the way that we will coach. So other coaches can also see, this is how you coach. So I will use certain terms. If the pieces aren't developed, I will say they're sitting in their pajamas, or the queen can't go alone to the party. She needs to get her entourage, or stuff like that. So just to make it feel like I understand those words. So maybe I do understand chess then,
100%. And that's the idea, is to make it acceptable and understandable and exciting for people to want to watch and then participate.
Yes. And to make someone, because people often think chess is such a difficult game, and I will never learn how to play chess. But it's not. It depends on your approach. Like for me, for instance, I think I will never be able to run 5 kilometers. Okay. But then if George can break it down for me and convince me, I'm sure he will find a way to convince me and to show me how to do it, but to me, it's just too big to conquer at this stage.
Yeah, 100%. George, from your perspective, how do we change the narrative in sport? Taking what Anzel said.
The one thing that I truly believe is I'm super happy that we've managed this in chess. The one problem that we've got in, shall we say, running, for want of anything better, is that the kids have got to, unlike sitting at a computer or school, they've got to get to a track or get to a field or join people. But the worst thing is for kids is the cost of shoes. They are just horrific. Now, we used to train in barter tackies when I was a kid.
Yeah.
If you were, no matter what you did, you had barter tackies. Heavy they might be, but you will run around the field in a barter tacky. Now, these kids, I think I'm super glad that you've got super sport involved. And just thinking aloud, if one could get, say, and let's use Western Province for the moment, because you were talking about it just now. Let's just assume we could start track evenings, but specifically at Greenpoint, because Greenpoint is easy for people from everywhere to get to, whereas up at Parow is not easy for people from the southern suburbs who are poor. They can't get there. And why don't we try and see if we can't get somebody who will support 2 or 3 evenings just as a starting block, and give kids a chance to use Greenpoint. And I say the youth, I'm talking about to have track sessions that we advertise, just limited track, not the whole track evening, but a very interesting one. And we then get our lady to organize Super Sport to get a commentator, or she can commentate.
George, you let the cat out the bag. That is what is coming. I'm busy working on a shortened track program where you have north versus south. So that's coming. You've let the cat out the bag. I'm working on that with the provincial government currently to fund it. Anzel?
Alton, I'm thinking now.
That I would be overjoyed.
But for track even, isn't there, especially long distance running, okay? Longer distances. Now, I'm just thinking, I don't know if this can work, but if I'm thinking now in chess, so the players play physically against each other because you have to move and I have to move, right? So you play white, I play black, so you have to move before I can move. But we play on the same board because we can do that on chess, and there's a clock. But what if you have, for instance, 4 different tracks, different areas, but at exactly the same time, even if you have one camera set up at the starting blocks and then also the finish line, and they start at exactly the same time, and you have it like we have for the chess, so there's Zoom meeting, so you can physically see the people run. All you need is the camera, and then obviously have the time and when they finish the finish line. Isn't that something you can look at?
No, you actually lack something there, and you're lacking the competition with one another. They actually, I really, if I had to explain to you how those kids interacted and how their families cheered them on when we had these evenings in Boksburg, it was really limited, 800, 1,500, 5,000. So we try to keep a limited number of events. And really make it worthwhile. And that meant that all the sort of slightly older kids could come through, but they could also start competing for their province now, whereas only the people, say, at Pretoria HPC or one of the better schools with better facilities could give them that opportunity. And there are so many talented kids in these townships. I went to... a couple of years ago, I used to take the guys to track at Khayelitsha, My wife didn't like it because occasionally tires got burnt, so she wasn't too keen on my age group going into Khayelitsha at night. But it was fantastic to be there with the young guys.
There are plans afoot, George. Watch the space. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, to exactly that principle of having a sprint evening with two field events or 3 field events per age category on a given night. So that's coming. So guys, we coming to the end of our session. I want you to round up and give us your take on why people should be doing sport. Why are you still involved? Because all 3 of you, all of us on this platform, generally give up our time for free. Why are you still doing this? What is the incentive for you? That's what I want to know. And so does everybody else. Why are you still involved? Because it costs you so much time and effort, but yet you still do it. Why? We'll go the other way around. Let's start with George, Etienne, and we'll end with Anzel.
Well, I believe in trying to make a difference in a person's life. And I chose, as it happens, athletics to do this. In my case, middle distance from 800. And by the way, I could make you run 5K. You could start it with me, because remember, I'm over 80. So if I ran with you, you would have to. So I really, really enjoy seeing people perform to their best level. I really, really try my best to get them support from various people. And like Elton's one of the people supported us. He's done massaging for my guys and stuff like that. And I always say thank you to him. I don't forget to. So really, that is why I like it. It makes a difference to people.
Thank you, George. Etienne, from your perspective, why are you still doing this other than moving to George and running away from all of us?
Alton, I with a big plan here, because I'm going to end off with a very controversial statement and comment. And then I'm going to delete myself from social media, and I'm going to find myself a little hut and become a hermit away from society. What keeps me here is passion. I've got a passion for people. I've got a passion for developing holistic, well-rounded, healthy people, a healthy society. And that keeps me alive, and it pays more than the bills. And I don't want to sound as only an economist, but sport is paying my life. It's paying for me to do what I do. And I think I'm fortunate enough, but also bold enough. And this is the challenge that I'm putting out there to everybody that's listening, is to make your passion, turn your passion into an income. Again, coming back to the transfer of skills, that's very important. And yeah, again, nobody is going to take my DNA away from me. Because if you take my DNA, which is sport, you might as well just put me in a grave. And so, yeah, passion and willing to move towards greatness in this platform. I hope that answers your question. And Elton, if this is the last moment that I have to speak tonight, may I be very controversial?
Go for it. It's the last moment. Yeah.
Okay, so if I don't speak to anybody, Anzel, have a good trip up to Ghana. All the best. Bring back the medals. What I'm going to say now is to Elton, all the politicians out there listening, and hopefully that's going to listen to this. We all know what the president said this morning. We're working towards the deadline of 29 May. I'm putting out a challenge to all the politicians. I've never heard any party in any campaigning statement, speech, saying anything about what they are going to do for sport in South Africa. So politicians out there listening, I don't care who you are, convince me and all the listeners why we should vote for you through sports. And that is the way that we're going to change quickly. Because if we say sport is big in society, in South Africa, we're all there for sport. I'm not hearing it from the politicians. So it's a challenge I'm putting out there. Madam Sir Politician, convince me, and I might put my vote back to you for that reason. And put your money where your mouth is. Support sport. That's the way the country is going. And cheers, everybody. I'm off social media for now. Just put in your leg. But I think, Alton, we're all saying we're fed up with this country. I don't have to repeat myself. Here's an opportunity for those people in management, in power, and I think it's a great opportunity. Let's take this, and that's my challenge to whoever wants to take up this challenge. And I'm very arrogant and bold in saying it, but I think it's time that we need to put our mouth words to where our actions need to be.
100%. Thanks, Etienne. Anzel?
Yeah, I don't know how to react to that now. Thanks, Etienne. Etienne for president. What?
Well, Minister of Sport.
Yes.
Minister of Sport. Let's go one step at a time. Eh? Let's go one step at a time.
There we go. Definitely. Look, for me, sport is in general, but especially chess, has always been my safe space. It doesn't matter what I went through in life, whether I lost a parent or I lost or heartbreak or whatever. It's that one place when I sit at the chessboard and I know it is the same place, it's the same rules, and it's the same game. And yes, obviously, when you go through difficult things in your life, it affects your game and it affects certain things, and it affects your performance. But that it has always been my happy space and my safe space. So for me personally, as a player, that is why I do chess. And as a coach or as a chess enthusiast, I firmly believe that chess or sport in general has the ability to change lives. And I know it's such a cliche and everyone says it and all that, but it's specifically about hope. If we in chess and education for FIDE, we always say, when you reach a child, you reach a family. When you reach a family, you reach a community. And when you reach a community, you can actually change a nation. Yeah. And this is exactly what Etienne also now said, let's make sport a priority. But we can also make sport a priority by using sport to make our individuals a priority. And I want to bring it back to that. And just the last point from my side, Alton, thank you so much for this tonight. I love the collaboration, and you really, really reminded me tonight why we need to collaborate as sport enthusiasts. Whether it's coaching or athletes, we need to speak. I cannot emphasize how much it means to me to learn from other coaches as well. And for other coaches, I'm sure to learn from chess. When I speak to Etienne and Etienne says to me, Anzel, you need to take this, this, and this. These are natural things, not supplements or whatever. He will give me a dupa to drink just to really, and he will explain to me exactly, if you drink cayenne pepper, this is what it does. When you drink this is what it does to your system. This is what it does to your body. I'm not going to give all the secrets now, but okay. So rather drink this type of water, not that type of water, because it assists you with that, and that. I understand chess, but he understands endurance, for instance, which when we play chess, we sit there for 5 hours. George, 5 hours. You know how long is that to sit at the chessboard? And you have to perform. So
it's the comrades. It's the comrades.
It's the comrades. Now imagine I play 2 comrades games on one day for 10 days, or something like that. So it's and that's why I said, us as athletes, as players, we need to understand why we do certain things. And as coach, we need to explain to our athletes why they do certain things and why they need to do certain exercises so they can understand their bodies and take responsibility for their bodies. And good luck, Alton, Etienne and George. Good luck with your businesses and your coaching and all your activities. I'm looking forward to follow you as well.
Anzel, thank you.
Thank you so much, President.
Anzel, we want to wish you all the best for the Africa champs. Come back with a medal, which we know you will. But just to round up, I think there's a few things that's come out. One, that at the end of the day, we need to start focusing on sport as a whole. That sport is the driver for society, both in terms of education, in terms of life skills, but more importantly, in terms of economic value, which we don't often talk about. If you work in sport, you put food on other people's tables by employing other people, which we don't often talk about. The economics of sport is something that we don't have a conversation about in a general space. We don't talk about how much money gets plowed into sport just by travel, by accommodation, by food, by equipment. It's tons of money that is not even spoken about. I used this example a few weeks ago. Etienne, you will know when I did Epic in 2005, entry fee was 5,700 rand. Etienne was there. When I finished the Epic, 8 months later, my bill was 50,000 rand, excluding my sponsored equipment. That was 2005, because I accounted for every little drop of money I spent, whether it was petrol, going to a training, whether it was my supplements, whether it was this, whether it was that. We don't take the big picture of the economics of sport into account and the impact that it has on society. And government is not seeing that, to your point, Etienne, 100%. You know, but unless we build the youth, to George's point, if we build the youth in terms of how we need to grow the society and build with the youth, to Anzel's point, how we build the coaches then to be able to equip them to have the life, to be able to teach life skills, to be able to teach long-term participant development, that you're not only here for the time you're at school, but the lessons you learn through sport is a lifelong process. Hence, it's called long-term participant development. Is that we need to grow athletes to be able to participate at 60, like George, who started running at 60, you know, and using the passion that we have to inculcate that into other people so they too can have that same passion, like we've got the passion from people before us. We need to pass that baton on. Violet says 100% Etienne, government needs to invest in sport and we'll definitely see the change in the future. SA has so much undiscovered talent in the community and rural areas. We need to uplift the nation. Thanks for your passion, guys. And Alton, thank you for the important conversations. I hope politicians do listen. Yes, we hope so. But we know that they probably won't. Because it's, like I said earlier, sport is ranked 9th out of 13 departments in this country, unfortunately. And unless we as civil society start making a noise, like Etienne has done, we will not see the change. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being part of the show. Next week will be another show, 8 o'clock, same time, same place. Have a great week. Anzel, travel safely. Bring back the medals. George, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Etienne, I'm coming to the hyperbaric chair in a month's time.
Bring your mountain bike.
Right. Ciao.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Well, bye.
Yes.